afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dignity Health ICD-10 mobile application demonstration. Thank you for Mobile App, who will be demonstrating this mobile app demonstration to everybody here. We have passed the ball on to John. Please keep your muted and use the raise your hand option and the chat. My team will be fielding the question. Thank you.
For joining today, and I am going to spend a lot of time demonstrating the use and the ICD-10 virtual codebook has been available as part of the training and resources for the application of ICD-10. I am an institute, so I'm by trade. A co-CDI specialist. I do rent a team, however, of folks that backs me up that can answer some of those questions. So I'll be focused on the technology components. Questions last time that were more coding, we'll be happy to take those to our team, subject matter experts, and but today focus is going to be around the sort of the technology. And specifically asked, based on the last presentation, there's more time on the 10 virtual codebook and system than I did. And then, so we're going to do that first because there were a lot of questions last time based on the feedback. Talk about that process, and then I'll go into how do we use it and services. So Dignity Health has made great strides and efforts to make this process as easy as possible for you. You know, the point of apps is not as easy as one might hope. Stores, the nice thing is that once you get the app, the app store, worry about that. But kind of the challenging component is actually getting it on your phone to begin with. Now, Dignity has set up a special website with partnership with Precise. University.com, so we get it as short as possible. So Precise.com/dignity, and that will you to that we need to fill out, complete it, and actually get a code or as many codes as you need to install a personal device. Selecting the type of code I would need. So I would here and let the form know that I need one of those. I would also have a Kindle Fire or a Samsung. I might have multiple devices that I need it for. And anything highlighted here in orange that is going to send me a code for those. And then I actually fill out my information. If I have autofill, which I'm not going to use, I would do. Based on it, not require you to enter your NPI number. So go ahead and say I'm a nurse, so I don't have to do that. If you are you may to enter that information, enter my email address, and actually identify my facility. So as you'll notice, a list comes down of the facility. So if I let it, you know, kind of go through the list, type in the first few things, because this is helpful for them to be able to identify the app. So I put in St. Joseph's. I started to type that, and that appeared, so I was able to click it. Now, I hit submit here, but if I did, it's going to be the instructions that I need, and it's going to give me an email, verify I am by that email, and send me a code that I can. Now, I think that part of the policies is education, which is very prudent. you go to this form. And done that, once you've done your education, all you have to do is fill out this form, and you're on. There are instructions to follow depending on your device. They're a little different for getting the app and for installing it on your those instructions that come with your license code, and you'll be able to enter that information and go in. And so I'd like to pause before getting into how to use the system and any questions related to a license code to be able to get this.
Or use the chat, John, just so you're aware, everybody is muted.
Okay, go ahead and raise your hand and use if you have a couple of minutes. While people to form and communicate the questions and figure out probably to do that. If you ever have any questions at all, this Persity.com there's an email address, support@persity.com. And staff will be able to assist you with any questions that you might have. So, process and anything's confusing, just shoot support@preciseuniversity.com, and they will assist you with navigating this. Okay. Questions? Have more time for the end, so we address those at a later point, maybe. And I'm going to kind of jump into the app. So last I used, and it was prudent this time to use an device to show you that it's Android. It's very, very similar. If you've got an Apple device, an iPhone, or an iPad, I'll do this, but it's actually extremely certain in the way that it works. This is my personal phone, like many of you. Our organization also doesn't provide phones necessarily. It's a stipend, so this is my phone, and it's a phone much like a Samsung or any other Android phone. And you know, made the app icon available on. I got the app through Google Play. I followed the instructions. I downloaded, and now it's installed on my device. And it's an app that I would get if my lights are turned off at it, as CMS changes things, which they inevitably will. At your request, which you're welcome to do, and via that support@preciseuniversity.com, you can automatically Google Play or Apple or Amazon update process. So you don't have to worry about it once you get it on your phone. Go ahead and update. So like I would for any other app, and it opens me. There's some good instructions here. Some of the phone. So, sorry, it's changed in my room. I really apologize because it's crystal clear. All that time. There we go. That's a little bit better. So it says to enter a clinical search term or part of a code, results will appear contain that term. Code descriptions and the italics are includes. So if there's things, I'll include those as well. And to not working. But you do on the before I switch, you do works on Android. It's just coming out too fuzzy right now. So we'll see if we can see better on a bigger screen. Much better. I'll just do some differences. So the area that I'm going to talk about with iPad, and favorites and screens that you can change to, they're at the top. Android works. And then on the iPad, they're actually at the bottom. They're a little different. It's just the way that Apple's their apps and require that you build their apps versus the way they look on an Android device. So my iPad, even though the face is slightly different, the way to function and the ability to process information is the same. Certainly the back-end data, that's CMS, and then also the documentation tips that we provide with our Matter Expert are also the same, whether you're using an Android or an Apple device. Instructions a little clearer for you, not crisp, but clearer that you can probably read them at this point. So you search term or part of a code, and you'll get a result. Then there are several icons that you should be aware of. This looking icon here is called the excludes, and there are excludes for most things, except for the really specific codes you want each time, because those that you're looking for may actually be in those excludes. And I'll give some examples of that. But we pay attention to that with the icon. So from the search screen, you're not going to have code or assign document based on just those results. You're going to want to dive deeper. You want to click on it, look at what the excludes are before you do that. Then there's a that gives you denotes your favorites, and then icons next to it with the hourglass. It's a documentation tip, and document tips are additional things that we subject matter experts that have said these are the documentation, the for ICD-10, the things that for each of these diagnoses. So these are very, very important tips. Again, I think 80-some% have tips, and I'll show you some examples of things that don't. And specific that if you're assigning that diagnoses, then really that is that's all you need to do. You don't need to include a lot of extra information. Like and orthopedics, I mean, they're so specific in CMS is looking for as far as the description. You don't need more information other than those are already included in the information is already included in the description. Okay, I'm going to show you some examples. Number 3 is always click on the result to get more details into these documentation tips and that sort of thing. List and then assign information based on that list. So I'm going to give an example and then get a little bit more complicated. So I'm keypad. You enter. It adds them as what we call tags across the bar here. Okay? Just didn't mean to click that actually. And that there even for just cholera. Okay? Documentation tips for some of them. There's excludes for some of them, and favorites by these icons on the right. So these are actually the official CMS they saying we support. This includes, it's in italics, it's going to be the same code, it's going to direct you to the same documentation text. And so many of these will also do that. Like if you're to color and specify, it's going to look and say, make sure that you specify the type if no. Have any, obviously, again, they're so specific. Not much is needed other than just between what's written there. And again, often very, very, thankfully, very rare. You've learned about the sub-character, the sequela, and the initial encounter. Those are automatically generated code books. So you don't have to think through those. You just need to select, okay, this will counter, so like that actual code for me. Those are the documentation tips related to that. what I'm going to do next is I'm going to dive into one of these. So let's say this was the dice that I wanted. So again, simple example. So there's not any excludes. There's not many. One of these was actually click that, and it will hyperlinked. And actually, what I wanted. In this case, it isn't. So that is available. And I have documentation tips, and obviously, there's in terms of documentation tips, these are very simple. So that's example there. Another is diabetes. Obviously, we get more, than we did in 1989. For instance, and one thing you did probably notice at the bottom of the screen, when the word diabetes, I come up with results. Now that's exactly 311 codes. Some synonyms. So you've got things that are they just may be called something different. But I know you're going to scroll through a list of 311 things, right? So I'm going to want to put more information in, provide specificity, so on the results, and type 2. And I can slowly so you can see how I'm doing it. I could be typing these very fast. We'll do that. So a couple of manageable list. I'm down to 50. Now a list. Okay, so now I've got 3 codes to choose from. So implementation tip. So I'm just going to select this one. Okay, that's again. I've got all the things that this could be called according to us. When you go into something that, if it's from here and you can't find it, there's that allows you to cross-reference that you can find it there. And, the use additional. What are the things that need to be coded with this? Those are also available here. And so to code this, if I'm assigning codes, I could go what that is. That is if it's pertinent. For something like this, I can go there and it's specific to a newborn and do these and see if any of these are applicable as well. And then more documentation tips. So the more documentation tips I will add. This is something to look into and read into, because these are the things that are going to need to be included in order for the correct amount of specificity. If someone else is assigning my code, I have to look at this in the bottom part here, just make sure that none of the excludes are applicable. Okay, is that there are over 750 applications that this supports, and it all supports on any devices that support recognition. We have optimization for audio recognition. You click little audio on my phone or iPad in this case, and then me and type that. Pass. Failure, and it's 18 results for CF, and scroll through those and do exactly what I need. Now, gobbledygook. If there are not results, you'll notice this is for perfect. That's checking the alphabetic index, and it has a link directly there. appendices in terms of things as well. Search through and look for and say, you know what, I've called it this, and I've been taught since medical school to call it this. CMS that term. If I click on these, it will take me to the code, or I can search and filter this list as well. So I can filter it in alphabetize, or I can search, which is much more effective, and refer me to exactly as officially called annotation tips that relate to that. So they're available. This question, so I'll go through the next few things pretty quickly. But those factors and the alphabetic index by using the button. It's either depending on what type of device you have. And to go chapter, and the chapters are organized by so that you go through their neoplasms or growth, but you basically all the here within the code book. So I dive down into different chapters. I can look at what's supported, and then I filter from there. So I have codes, and there are 23 in this particular area of the code book, this subchapter, and to filter these lists or look at them. So a huge thing that people are requesting that we're already working on is organizing these favorites, but now it's just a big list of favorites as you enter them, and we're going to get out with that in version 4. But anything that you start, which by the way, I mentioned in the upper right-hand corner, that's what it takes to favorite them. So if I uncheck, and it's hard to see on the screen here, but that's doled out. It's in real life, it's very much a difference. But on there to you, I know it doesn't look like much difference, so you'll kind of have to take my word for it. But and that's all you need to do to add or remove a favorite is just change or stylus that remove a favorite. So those are favorites. Recent searches or share. Really good feature is the about. And everything that I've done today is available, and this is also available on our support site online. And features of the virtual codebook and walks you through the same sort of examples that I went through. Gives you examples of what you can do and how you should search and drive to specificity to get the information that you need from the virtual codebook. Link, contact us for help, and then at support@firstuniversity.com at the bottom. So basically the virtual codebook, and by the way, there's a sharing button so you can see what version you're on, and that gives you that. So with that, I know we wanted to leave some time for questions. I opened up for questions that folks have. Excuse me. Go ahead and type your questions into the can feature to
This is Rita. There aren't anyone raising their hand or any questions in the chat box currently.
Okay. So I'm very thorough. The latter. To make sure we left some time for that, so I apologize if I spent. Wanted to make sure.
Yes, there are questions coming in, so bear with me.
Okay, great.
Everyone's patient, so thank you.
Great.
Can not a problem. The one question is, can they change the star to a blank or colored instead of dull or bright?
One more time.
Sure. Change the star to be blank or colored instead of the dull or bright.
We'll take that to our product team and see if we can make that more distinctive. So feedback. We're always improving this. Newer versions will be coming out in subsequent months and responsive to that. So that's a great thing. Thank you.
Can they download to more than one device?
Great question. If you have multiple different types of devices, you will use their process of, the form, identify those devices, and use alternate codes. Google and Amazon are a lot easier. So you can enter that code up to 5 times. So, tablets and a couple of phones and a buy-in phone, you can use it up to 5 times. On Apple, it actually goes into your purchase history. So load it from my purchase history again on up to 5 devices. So the 10 devices across those different ones, 2 different codes, and you'd be that. So re-downloading, just like I re-download any app when I get a new phone or when I buy one phone, I don't need to buy it on the other. I just go into my purchase in the App Store and it'll download that right to your device. Great.
Are the laptops or the PCs?
That's a very common question we're getting right now, and unfortunately there is not currently a version available. So the mobile versions are currently available. That question so much soon, because I think there may be some announcement coming here. Thank you.
And it was a good presentation.
Rita, any response to?
Moment,
I know.
Multitasking with that.
Well, while you're reading through the chat, I hope that you'll all download a copy and go to perseci.com/dignity, fill out the form and download it. And if you have any questions, just contact us at perseci.com. We'll be happy to walk you through the process. Our in as many hands as possible. I believe it's great. We have a lot of folks who are using this in dual coding environments right now, Cedars-Sinai and other places that contributed to the feedback of this latest version. So we've been a tool for you from not only but a practical perspective as well. And please go ahead and download it. Tell your friends about it. Need people to download it as possible and get the rate that Dignity Health has done this for the organization. Made it working with organizations that are not, so they have a lot of great force in being able to do that. So we able to take advantage of that, and they want as many people as possible to take advantage of that. So please.
Show the regime install at all.
On the device that you, so let me back up. Yes, let me zoom out and back up. Most challenging. I can use the email right here and then click on the link to the App Store, and I the button here. and that means to enter in the first word apparently. Sorry. Password. So easier to enter your password when 100 people are not watching you. So the password, you'll get a read area, and you can enter the code in, and it will automatically download on the device. And clicking the link because it's it can be, but they're bigger, definitely superhuman friendly. So entering that code is there. But there would
Okay. Regarding voicemail, I'm sorry, voice command option. I guess
yes.
it wasn't whether that was available or not.
Yeah, most phones support, so we integrate with the phone or the text voice. Again, and I lot in this because I know a lot of people type. I'm a big voice user. So rather than entering information, I click in the area, and whatever my voice button is, so on that it's just the microphone. Call her up. And then so recognition, then we get that voice recognition within your device. Android voice integration. So if your supports it, which again, these days, if you bought your phone in the last couple of years,
Great. Muted to ask your question. How long should the email be delayed with the download code?
it should be fairly instantaneous. So just like if you were sending an email to someone, or a friend, or a colleague with side of the system, depending on email traffic, that can take like 3 to 5 minutes usually. So if you might want to check your spam and your personal email. Times it'll end up in there. Automated message might be the issue there if it's taking longer than that.
Well, I had completed the form for the wrong type of device. Need to resend another form, or?
Yeah, the best way to do it. That's going to be the quickest, just to complete the again and then just select the alternate.
Hey.
Yes.
I screenshot. I installed it on my iPhone 6.
Oh.
One thing that was confusing, and I also had this question from a user over at our help desk.
Sure.
First screen you get, it says redeem your gift card using your iPhone's camera, and it's very intuitive what you're supposed to do. It sort of implies that you're supposed to.
Okay. Yeah, great feedback. We'll look at that. I mean, that is an option. So that from Apple's documentation and kind of made it, and that's pushing. So the top thing, we'll certainly work with your team there and see if we can revise that to make that a little more clear and concise. But the late option, that's so they're trying to
just calling out that it's for the phone. When you're using an Apple device, it's not super intuitive that in the upper right corner to redeem, and you don't have to enter anything, but the itself implies you're supposed to enter some sort of code or gift card. And it even it says use camera like you're supposed to scan it. So it can just click in the upper right corner and it'll start installing. No problem.
Over, and we started about 5 minutes late, but I don't know if there are other questions, anything like that.
So reach out to email if I find that there are other additional questions. If
Great.
that's
I want to thank everybody for their time and the opportunity to present. And again, down your friends, really appreciate it.
you coming out and doing it.